A transgender chief executive of a rape crisis centre has resigned following a damning report which found it had failed to protect women-only spaces. Murudal Wadhar, who was appointed CEO of the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre in 2021, quit after a report commissioned by Rape Crisis Scotland found there had been a failure to set professional standards of behaviour. Well, we're joined now by the Director for Women of Scotland, Marianne Calder. Thanks so much for joining us, Marianne. This is a very interesting case, and a lot of people will be asking the question, given that a rape crisis centre for victims of sexual assault really should be a women's-only space, why was it being run by a man for so long?
Well, as you correctly stated, it all started back in 2021 when Rape Crisis Edinburgh put an advert out to hire a new chief executive. And that advert quite clearly stated it was looking for a female. But then for whatever reason, Murudal, who is a male, decided to apply for the job. And then he was successful and was put in position. So fast forward to May this year, there was a tribunal case taken by a member of staff at Edinburgh Rape Crisis by Ros, her name being Ros Adams. Now, Ros, being quite sensible, thought it was that females, users of the service, rape victims, should actually know the sex of the individual that's actually giving the counselling service. Now, at that time, Murudal was employed, Murudal is a male, and there was also a non-binary member of staff who was a female, but didn't actually identify as being male or female. So you can understand why Ros was actually asking the question. Now, Ros was successful in her tribunal, and off the back of that, Rape Crisis Scotland commissioned an independent survey into the actions of Edinburgh Rape Crisis, and this report came out on Thursday, and it was utterly damning.
Now, am I right in thinking that Wadhar, in a podcast, I believe it was the Guilty Feminist podcast, had said in an interview that women who were victims of rape could be bigots too, and that if they were asking for female-only spaces, that they needed to reframe their trauma? I hope I'm not misquoting there. Can you just clarify for me?
You're not misquoting at all. And in fact, he was actually suggesting that anyone requesting the sex of an individual shouldn't be, why is it necessary? And they should be educated. So no, you haven't misquoted at all. So this individual's views, Murudal's views, have been known for years within Scotland. I mean, this is an activist. This is a trans activist. So everyone has been aware that this is a male that wants to be kind of the rest of the public to actually see him as female. But he has been feted by the SNP. In fact, he was actually put forward to actually stand under, to be an MSP, MP, councillor, and also subsequently the Greens. So he is quite infamous, shall we say, in Scotland for his views about women like myself and others, and males who actually believe that sex is biological and it cannot be changed. And in a service like Rape Crisis, it should absolutely be female only.
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? I mean, you know, if this were a case that this individual were applying for a job at the library or a job at the, I don't know, Tropical Fish Centre or whatever it might be, and they were discriminated against on the basis of their biological sex, then I think there would be a strong case there. But we're talking about a rape crisis centre. There are good reasons, good legal reasons, why discrimination by sex is perfectly legitimate in those cases, surely.
It is. I mean, there is Schedule 9 under the Quality Act that allows services like Rape Crisis and/or Women's Aid to employ females only. And it's quite categorically says this post is only available to women under Schedule 9 of the Quality Act. Yet he applied for it. Now, that was wrong. But the point being is he was hired. That's not his fault. That was those that sat on the board that put him in that position.
Well, can I ask about that? Because, you know, that sounds very much like the fault lies with those people at the Rape Crisis Centre. The board of whoever it was responsible for the employment. But in addition to that, the SNP has taken a rather odd attitude about all of this. Do you think that they were hiring Wadhar to make a political point?
It certainly feels like that, and certainly the women in Scotland feel like that. I mean, the previous First Minister stated that our views were not valid, and certainly what we found in Ros Adams' case, that those who had complained to Edinburgh Rape Crisis and/or Rape Crisis Scotland, their emails had been put in a hate folder. So their views weren't valid. So Edinburgh Rape Crisis were not taking on the views of women, stating that this was inappropriate, that they wanted to know the sex of the individual that's giving them counselling, and they were just completely and utterly discounted. So we ask, and we're requesting, have stated, as has J.K. Rowling, that there needs to be an urgent review of the board at Edinburgh Rape Crisis and of Rape Crisis Scotland.
Well,
because
now that this decision
damaged.
Sorry, Marion. Now that this decision has been made, and of course, as we all know, J.K. Rowling had to set up Byres Place, the only rape crisis centre in Scotland that is for women only. But do you think now, given this development, things are moving in the right direction? Maybe in Scotland things can get a little better when it comes to women's rights. Are you, in other words, heartened by what's happened?
I wouldn't say heartened. I think that women in Scotland have felt utterly destroyed over the revelations that this report came out with last Thursday. It has basically confirmed everything that we've been saying, whether that has been to rape crisis themselves and or to politicians, Scottish government across everywhere. Even though we managed to get rid of self-ID, it still has infiltrated, this ideology has infiltrated every aspect of society here. But the fact that it infiltrated so badly into rape crisis just shows how, unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of weeding out to do over the next few years. And I think the repercussions of this report and of Rape Crisis Scotland's decision was it basically sits with them as the board and the chief executive, Sandy Brindley. I think the report is going to have ripples and waves for very many months to come. And next month will be the remedy hearing for the individual Ros Adams. So again, it's not going away. So this will continue on and on and on. So we would request an urgent review be taken out by government into all women's sector organisations that receive funding for them to make sure this never happens again.
Well, Marion, I'm sure that this is something that, as you say, is going to continue, and I hope you'll be able to come back on the show to discuss it more. Marion Calder from For Women Scotland, thank you very much for joining me. The Labour government will not be carrying forward plans to rewrite the Equality Act to protect single-sex spaces. And why is this so important? Because the Conservatives had planned to clarify the bill to make it clear that sex in legislation means biological sex. So to explain this, I'm joined now by journalist and author Ella Whelan. Welcome to the show. So, Ella, a lot of people were saying that when the Equality Act was formulated back in the day, nobody would have doubted or even questioned the idea that the word sex within the Equality Act pertained to biological sex. What other kind of sex is there? Mm-hmm. Times have changed, and now activists are saying the Equality Act does not protect biological sex. Are they right?
Yeah, in practice, it just doesn't work because there is this confusion between the idea of someone's gender or someone's sex, which, as you say, I mean, even 5-10 years ago wouldn't have been such a big deal as it is now. The sort of rise of gender ideology and the issue of trans, as we know, particularly among young people, has kind of skyrocketed. And it might be part of our vocabulary today, but it certainly wasn't 10, 20 years ago. And in practice, this means that the confusion in the law means that, say you run a rape crisis centre, which most sensible people, most sympathetic people will understand as being places that are women only, protected in sex, being that in that particular instance, what body you have is pretty relevant to the issue at hand. But the people who run those centres are now, if they're going to apply by the law, potentially have to allow in trans women, potentially have to have, basically, they're in danger of being discriminatory if they don't. That's a big problem for women. Also in sort of more mundane, but also sort of everyday important aspects of life, whether it's swimming pools, infamously the Hampstead Heath ponds being where a lot of activists are talking about this, that you can't say women only here, because women only means women only plus trans women. And it was one of the very few things that the Conservatives promised to do right. They had their head screwed on before they got kicked out by saying, let's just clarify this. Yeah. It's just a very simple thing. Let's just clarify it's about biology, which is what most people understand it to be. And of course, you've got Annalise Dodds, who, is both incompetent when talking about anything relating to the gender wars and also on the wrong side of it in terms of being overly sympathetic to trans activists, coming in and saying, nothing to see here, we don't need to change it.
Well, that's what I'm confused about, because we've had Wes Streeting saying the Labour Party will be implementing the findings of the Cass review, suggesting that there is an understanding within Labour of the importance of these issues. But as you say, there are other voices like Annalise Dodds who don't seem to know what they're talking about. But surely clarifying it would help everyone, and can't everyone get behind that?
Well, no, everyone can't get behind that, because we have to remember there's quite a strong activist pressure from trans activists, whether it's Stonewall or any other organisation, that still has the ear of the Labour Party. I mean, let's not forget that Keir Starmer, this is the ridiculous situation we're in. Keir Starmer didn't know what a woman was for a very long time. He had this confusion about cervixes. I mean, I don't know if that extends to his private life or not, but... And he literally did this interview, I think it was a few months ago, where he said, no, I'm clear now because Tony Blair, told me the difference between a man and a woman. So, never mind Rosie Duffield or any of the women in his life informing him on the difference between cervix, vagina, man, woman. It took a bloke, his ex-boss, to do it. So the point I'm making is that this is all a bit of a facade. These people know what the difference is. They know, but Keir Starmer, for God's sake, is, lawyer and meant to be an expert in the law, knows what the equality law should be about. But they are pandering to a remaining activist sort of pressure, which is very disappointing, because this is having a real effect on women's lives, not just on an everyday basis, but in serious cases in relation to rape crisis centres. But the interesting thing about the equality law is that, and I'm donning the Battle of Ideas Festival T-shirt, you'll notice, which is happening on the 19th and 20th of October. And we've got this session where we want to look at equality law and ask whether it's a friend or foe, and say, from issues around free speech, protected characteristics. In the news of the last week, there's been a suggestion that Afro hair, black hair might become a protected characteristic. We've had lots of other rows about political beliefs and stuff, and the equality law just keeps expanding. And we want to ask the question of whether or not it's fit for purpose, and whether or not actually we're having these political, cultural battles, and they're getting squashed into the arena of law, and whether we sort of have an issue with lawfare being the order of the day. So that's just, as much as I hang my head in despair about the incompetence of the Labour Party, I think there is an interesting tension there, which is that just if we fix the equality law, all of this isn't going to go away.
Yes.
And we should be careful about relying on courts and lawyers trying to fix what are deeply political and cultural issues.
Well, now that you've mentioned it, the Battle of Ideas coming up in about a month's time, as you say. For people who haven't seen, I'm at the Battle of Ideas every year and I absolutely love it, and we film a special Free Speech Nation show there every year, as we're doing again this year. But for anyone who's watching who doesn't know about this event, which you, of course, co-convene, perhaps you could tell us a bit more about it. So,
this Free Speech Nation takes place at the Battle, and we're very glad that we've got another year of you guys coming down to do it. We kind of call ourselves the home of free speech. It's been great that there's been a proliferation of free speech organisations. Actually, I have to give a shout-out to Women in Scotland, who are running a case in relation to the equality law, and there's lots of stuff going on. But it feels like, and we're very proud to have everybody pile into Church House, Westminster, and we become the home of free speech and open debate. Our sort of tagline this year is conversations for the public, with the public, in public. Because whether it's the Labour Party, Conservatives, the last general election, everything feeling like there's no space to talk about the issues that matter, we're going to be having debates on the endgame for Ukraine, international issues in relation to what's going on in Germany or what's going on in America. Actually, we've got a Kamala Mania session related to what Brendan was talking about. We've got discussions about free speech. We're really excited to be partnering with FIRE from America this year, who are coming over to bring an American perspective to the free speech wars. But also, we are not just interested in the big capital P political issues. We also want to look at arts and culture. We've got a really wonderful session on why J.S. Bach still matters and whether or not I'm going to play some of his music. A session asking what's the best ever joke, which will be in partnership with Comedy Unleashed. There's kind of something for everyone. The only thing you need to qualify for to come is, aside from getting a ticket, is that you are interested in free speech. People of all political persuasions come, right, left, somewhere in the middle, don't know.
That's really important, isn't it? Because I whenever I've been at the battle, one of the things I love about it is hearing both sides quite genuinely. It's not that echo chamber thing at all. And that's getting more difficult, isn't it, with a lot of campaign groups saying no debate, we just won't talk. How have you found getting those people involved?
Yeah, look, there are still issues in which we want to have massive rows. So I'm running a women's strand and a women's freedom strand, and there'll be some really quite touchy battles on there of people who are still quite on distinct lines. But there are certain issues where, for example, in relation to decolonisation, we've got a session on decolonising the curriculum in education, where, rather than having this sort of loggerhead, almost performative battle, we want to have a conversation around the issue. So I think we can all accept there's something to talk about in relation to censorship. I'm sort of done with the people who say, oh, free speech, you're all making it up, it's a storm in a teacup. I'm done with that.
Yep.
So I'm not going to have anyone like that on any of my panels. But instead, I think the conversations people want to have is, why is this happening? How deep does it go? What are the solutions?
Yep.
So there are going to be some hot Barneys and some people at loggerheads, but there are also going to be some really in-depth discussions, which is where our keynote debates come in on stuff like populism, two-tier governance, multiculturalism, all these issues that everyone tells you to shut up and not talk about, we want to talk about.
So finally, Ella, where can people find out more about the Battle of Ideas and how can they get tickets?
You can get tickets at battleofideas.org.uk or just message me or Claire Fox or anyone on related to the Academy of Ideas on Twitter. And if there's deals for school students, there's deals for university students, and if you're completely skint and you can't afford it, join my volunteers team, you get free tickets. So there really is no excuse to not be there with us.
Fantastic. Ella Whelan, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks.